Good morning and welcome to the second day of the third week of public hearings into the online platforms market inquiry. Today we're continuing with property classifieds, and our lineup is first of all 0800 Properties, who was rescheduled from yesterday. Then we've got My Property. After that we've got Private Property. That makes up the morning session till 1 o'clock, and then in the afternoon starting at 2 we have Property 24. So I would like to welcome Mr. Manning from 0800 Properties. Mr. Manning, welcome to the inquiry. You can unmute your visuals now.
Thank you.
Mr. Manning, we understand you're an estate agent, and you wanted to bring certain things to the attention of the panel and the inquiry. Can I ask you just to give us a little bit of details of your own agency, and then proceed to cover what issues you wish to raise with the panel, and we'll have questions following that.
Thank you for this opportunity of presenting my views on behalf of a lot of people who wouldn't be able to, under normal circumstances, present their views to the board. I've been in property since 1982. My whole life, I've been involved in property in various positions, working with various agencies, both large and small, working with developers. Up until COVID, I was also training previously disadvantaged agents. And I think I'm qualified to give information to the Competitions Board, in that I was working as an agent even before the State Agents Board was established. And I've gone through the whole processes of changes and seen changes in the marketplace and changes. And although these are my personal views, I think they would be endorsed by many other smaller estate agents, because people don't realize, although that you belong to a big estate agent, you are running your own business within a business. And the company has umbrella control over you, which helps you in education and probably establishes yourself. But in latter years, many agents have broken away from the bigger agencies and gone on their own in order to survive, mainly because you, as an estate agent, you share the commission with a company. They have different bases according to your seniority, but in the lower ebbs, if you're an intern estate agent, you normally start on a 50-50 basis, and then earning your commission, you still have to pay your taxes and all the statutory requirements. And working as an estate agent, there are as a new estate agent, there are lots of barriers to entry. One of the main barriers to entry is the cost of advertising your properties, and the other statutory requirements that are involved in it. And the Estate Agents Board has control over those other statutory requirements. But they don't have control over advertising. Now, over the years, what has happened, in the old days, we could advertise in the Star Smalls, for example, or Rand Daily Mail. That's going back a long time. I don't think many people will remember those publications. And then we moved on to mainly advertising in the Saturday Star. and the Sunday Times also had a property section. But because of changes in technology and changes in behavior in the market, we've all switched to online advertising. But taking a step back, and this is the important item that I want to bring to the attention. There are certain players in the property field, mainly the top agencies, that previously were controlling the advertising in order ostensibly to give
Mr. Manning, you've frozen on our side. I don't know if you can hear us.
The Property Association was run by it was chaired by or run by or
Sorry,
indeed
Mr. Manning,
by.
you froze for a moment. You were just introducing the Property Association, so maybe if you can just step back.
Right. The Property Association was established by major agencies in order to assist people in advertising properties on behalf of all the agents in regions. I can only talk about Johannesburg region because I wasn't involved, but I believe they also had sections in the newspapers like the Cape Argus and the Natal Mercury, I think it was. What they did, they went to the publicists, the newspapers, and they bought that supplement that was distributed in the newspapers. Like, for instance, the Saturday Star publication. And they controlled the advertising and also made a profit on it. And I think that this wasn't didn't benefit anybody in any way other than lining the pockets of those people who were shareholders in that, or the directors who controlled that. So they controlled the advertising in such a manner that the big people would give the big players, like the top 5 agencies, the Pam Goldings, the Eskil Jarvitz, the Rawsons, those big people, and they gave themselves discount in the advertising because they controlled the advertising. And then what has happened, it's evolved now into the digital advertising, where those people also have some control or influence over the portal. And the subsequent the demise of the Property Association, for whatever reason, was taken over by the same people in the name of Rebosa. Now, Rebosa decided to endorse private property. And I think it was for similar reasons that they could give themselves discounts on their bulk advertising, because advertising is a large proportion of the budget that is needed to operate a successful state agent. See. Now, I believe that similarly, they are controlling private property. I can't talk for property 24 because I don't have any insight to that because I don't use them at all. I solely advertise on private property, and I'm actually at their mercy, and so are all the other smaller.
Mr. Manning, you're frozen again. I don't know if you can hear us now.
Okay, I'll stop talking then, but I'll continue now.
Yeah.
And that led me to my own personal experience with private property, where they were giving me a 50% discount on the subscription prior to COVID. And that if you look at my original submission, point 1, whereby I say that I submit that they are price gouging by the removal of an established discount in lieu of a general price increase to some of its customers. Apparently, some of the customers still obtain a discount of 50% on their advertising. And that was disclosed to me by one of the managers at private property. So within private property, the small agencies or the small players are being heavily discriminated against as opposed to being supported.
And is that your main submission, Mr. Manning?
No, well, there are 5 points.
So maybe take us through quickly those other 4, and then we'll follow with some questions.
All right, and then there's the submission. Well, what would you like me to do? It's really repeating what I've put in writing.
Yeah, but this is a public hearing, so you've come and you want to make it public, and the public probably want to hear what your concerns are. So
yeah.
So I think take us through your other points.
Okay, then the undue influence that is exercised by large estate agencies over private property. And the capture of private property by Rebosa in the same manner as its predecessor, the Property Association. And there's a distinct conflict of interest between Rebosa and private property in that some of the common directors are directors of large estate agencies and directors of private property. So therefore they have an undue influence over the manner in which private property is managed. And then there is limited competition between the two portals, Property 24 and private property. In fact, the public can't distinguish between the two. I get many calls saying that from clients saying they saw my ad on Property 24, and it's impossible for them to see my ad on Property 24 because I don't advertise on Property 24. Okay, and then the further submission that I submitted yesterday to supplement the information to the board, to the Competitions Commission. Do you have it in front of you?
We do.
Okay. Whereby I say now, competition is choked by gatekeepers, for example, prop data, allowing private property control advertising and manipulate advertising channel to independent, smaller advertising portals, adding to the cost of advertising, as one must use a gatekeeper to feed the advertising to the other portals. Now, they will come up with a defense that this is a technical issue. What an agent has to do, everybody needs a website today. So their website providers that can feed properties to the portals. And in fact, from one portal to another portal. For example, in my original submission, I show that you can feed property 24 you can feed from private property to property 24 without using a website called Fusion. So that is something that I'd like to hear a response from them, because their costs, for instance, I developed my own website and it only cost me 800 Rand to do. Now, these website providers charge thousands of Rand every month to do it. And one of the main reasons that they say that they that you need to use them is because they feed to all the different portals. But what they don't tell you is that the extra cost involved, and it is difficult. For instance, if I want to advertise on IMO, I'd have to select IMO, pay a subscription to IMO, and then come and pay a subscription to private property in order to feed my adverts to IMO. Now, it's all very well complaining, but there is a solution that I suggest, is that the portals all contribute in proportion to their size to a free service that will allow the public to direct their advertising to whichever portal they would like to do, or to advertise. So I think I better read what is the solution? All property advertising portals should be regulated to supply a free feed service to all portals. Paid for by this free service should be paid for by the portals in proportion to their size. In that way, it would give the small portal the same opportunity to receive advertising as the larger portals, whereby the public and property practitioners will be empowered to choose on which portals they wish to advertise, free of any gatekeeper's influence. This will reduce the dominance of the major property portals and stimulate competition. And this is my major contribution to the Competitions Commission to investigate that and make recommendations on that to the industry, because we are totally at the mercy of these organizations, and we don't have freedom of choice where we go. Further, if I want to, it is the pricing structures of all these different portals are so difficult to understand or to find information. No pricing is transparent at all. I asked Gumtree where I should go to feed to them. They referred me back to, and they said Fusion does the feed for free. when I went back to Fusion and asked them for a free feed to Gumtree, they said I have to pay a subscription to them. So for the ordinary person in the street, or a reasonable person or educated estate agent, it is extremely, extremely difficult for them to advertise on the portals of their choice. The whole industry is controlled by Property 24 and private property. And when Caxton's bought, as I recall, private property from the previous owners, one of the stipulations, there were stipulations made by the Competitions Commission in giving them the license to operate. And I think those should be reviewed and gone back to and see if private property is complying to that.
Thank you, Mr. Manning.
Okay, one last point, sorry.
It's fine.
Private property is now also competing with the micro and previously disadvantaged estate agents by acting as a promoter opposed to an advertiser, using private property relationship managers to promote properties for certain favored advertisers. This is an unfair business practice, as the service is not open to all at a fair price, as the relationship manager is responsible to many advertisers. That was in my submission, the last point, number 8 in my submission yesterday.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manning. The panel has maybe a few questions, and we have the technical team here. So my fellow panel member, Ms. Doris Tsepe, and then the technical team you're probably familiar with, who've been communicating with you. But let me just start, just to understand your size. How many listings do you have at any one time, typically on private property?
Okay, about 300 to 500.
And what fee are you paying currently to private property for those listings?
I think we need to just retract. In the estate agent industry, there are people who do rentals, and there are people who do sales. There are people who sell developments. So there's subsections in the estate agencies that deal with the different sections. At this point in time, I'm only doing rentals.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's an important addition.
Yes. I have to look up the amount. It's 3,800 odd rand. I don't have an invoice, a current invoice in front of me. I can get that information for you.
No, that's fine. I think you've got it in your submission. I
Yes.
just wanted to ask, I see as part of your submission, you've also subscribed to a branded listing.
Yes.
Can you explain why you subscribe
to that as well?
That
is a contentious issue. Okay. In order to extract extra fees out of us, the portals discriminate against the smaller companies by not allowing them to place their logo. So in order to place your company logo, you have to pay an extra fee for that.
And how important is it to have your logo?
Well, it's not important, it's essential. Because if you go onto advertising and you look at people who can't afford it, and just advertise, they get a blank screen as a logo. You just get a shadow profile. And who will deal with somebody showing a shadow profile? I don't know what a shadow profile is. It's a blank page. So you say, would you deal with somebody who hasn't got a blank page? That's a blank page in today's market.
All
You
right,
don't know who that person
yeah,
is.
you're saying that's fairly essential. So in
It's
effect, you
it's
need to
not
buy that
essential.
additional element.
I think it's fundamental to the public to know who they're dealing with.
And Mr. Manning, you've said that it's a large portion of your budget. I mean, the property portals will say that, in fact, this is a very good deal because it cost more when you had to do print, and it's a small part of your commission, in fact. So maybe if you can give us an understanding of how much this advertising on the portals feeds into your costs and how it affects the margins in your business.
Okay, well, this would be different from small to large businesses. That proportion would drop significantly. But if you analyze the costs of a small estate agency, now let's say a one-man show, because there are many one-man shows. The last time the statistics showed more than half of the estate agents in South Africa operate as a micro or sole proprietor, as opposed to the larger agencies who have different levels of branches with different size staffing. So for a sole proprietor, I'd say that sole proprietor normally would operate from a home office, especially now after COVID and in the future. So the advertising, if presuming the home office pays a 10% as allowed to by regulations of SARS, of their monthly repayments on their property, and you're not allowed to have more than 40 square meters in a house, etc. So the budget for advertising will be the major expense thereafter. Then your mobile phone, then your connectivity, and thereafter there's small amounts for stationery and that. So in my opinion, the advertising is the largest bill to the small estate agent. To the larger conglomerates, it would be a minor expense, as their turnover is great. There's also one thing that is important to realize. We don't earn salaries. We only are successful operating as estate agencies of our current transactions. So there can be months that you can go by where you don't do a transaction, and then there'll be other months that you will have several transactions. And you have to operate on your own budget. It's a business within a business, and it's very, very, very difficult for people to enter the industry because it's only based on commission. Whether you're working for a large company, where you do get support in terms of education, etc., and office space, but you still don't earn any money unless you do any transactions. So the advertising is of paramount importance to every estate agent.
And can I ask, have you looked at listing on Property 24?
Yes, I did. And the reason why I didn't do that is that it was slightly more expensive than private property. And one of the major issues with Property 24, every time somebody clicks on an ad, you charged for that click. Now, in practice, people just go through all the ads and just click all the time on different ads that they like. So they might click on 5, 6 of your ads and only be interested in one. So that's why, and the bill became exorbitant. So I stopped advertising on Property 24 about 3 years ago, because I got a good deal from private property. I got the discount, and the charge was reasonable for a small agency.
Can I just ask your experience on Property 24? If you're charged for every click, does your bill then vary every month?
Yes, you charge. I don't know what their situation is today, but at the time that I advertised, they charge you a subscription. I think it was in the region of 3,800 Rand per month. Then over and above that, you were charged for featured ads, which boosted you to the top of the listing. And that boosting is really, it doesn't matter, because everybody, when you search on a portal, you put in your price range, you put in your requirement, like for instance an apartment or a house, and you will filter those out. So having a featured property doesn't really help you at all as an advertiser. It'll help you in promoting your brand only. It won't help you actually selling or renting that property by having a featured listing. Also, there's no flexibility in like, for instance, in the industry, you're allowed to, it's been practiced in the past that you can advertise in a range, because there's always negotiation involved in a transaction in real estate. For instance, if you advertise a house at R1 million, people will ask you, can you put in an offer? So the obvious answer to that is yes. You can put in an offer between 900,000 and R1 million, which is the asking price, and the seller will then be entitled to accept or reject your offer. And that's a complete free market principle. Yet on the portals, you have to advertise at a specific price. You can't advertise in a range.
Sorry, Mr. Manning, I just wanted to just go back. If you charged for every click, does your bill vary every month?
Yes, it would vary well, it did vary.
Right.
You see,
I
don't advertise on them now, so unless somebody's prepared to come forward and give that information to you, my information is of 3 years ago. And the reason why I didn't continue with them was because the pricing, you couldn't budget for your advertising every month. You didn't know whether it was going to be 3,800 or 5,000 Rand.
And Mr. Manning, the portals often will say that you don't have to use them, that you've got your own website. You could go on Gumtree or Facebook. What's your opinion of that?
The question is treated with contempt from them, as they have gobbled up all the Google AdWords. It's become nobody can enter the industry against them. Even the minor portals, that some of which are quite if I quote IOL, that they are non-existent anymore in the property industry because they were pushed out. You can't compete. There's nobody who can compete against the two major portals. As a small independent, even the larger estate agent companies cannot compete with them because all the Google AdWords are taken up by both of them. And there are no exceptions to that at all.
Right, so you don't see your own website as a means of advertising in competition with them. What purpose does your website play then?
It's not even a pinprick in the universe.
Mr. Manning, I'm just checking if there are any other questions we have, or maybe one. Sorry, while the team is thinking about it. Just on the leads that you were talking about, the sort of clicks and click through. I'm sure there are many leads that you get. Not every lead leads to a sale, or in your case, a rental. Just to get some understanding of how many leads you might typically have before you get to secure a client for a rental property.
It is substantial. Because once you've got the lead, it's not necessarily the advert that drew them. They might want something completely different. And to answer your question, I'd say I'd need about 20 or 30 leads to convert one rental or sale. Sales, it'll be actually more. You need a substantial amount of leads. So,
and when you're talking of leads, Mr. Manning, is that someone who's actually contacted you?
Yes, they'd answer through private property, either by SMS or by email. Now, even when you contact them, they can't remember who they contacted. So we have to establish a relationship with them, either telephonically or by email.
So it's not 20 or 30 clicks on a page, as you said happened when you were charged for leads. It's 20 or 30 actual engagements.
Yes, engagements to convert to one. And it will vary between estate agent by estate agent, but what the public tell me that they even though they've responded to ads of some agents, those agents don't even contact them. So it's not a process of advertising and then converting that advert to a rental. The process is much more involved than that after the lead has been supplied. So the portals can say they give you thousands of leads. It's thousands of useless leads. maybe out of those thousands of useless leads, there are only a handful of leads that can be worked.
All right, so it's the quality of lead that you're also
Yes,
getting.
yes, yes.
And if I understand, if you're charged every time I click on your property, I might be just exploring, but it's not a lead as you understand it.
Yes, but just you must differentiate between a click on property 24 and a lead supplied by private property. Two different situations.
We just have a question from the panel. Mr. Lesofi, I don't know if you've met him in your previous interactions.
I remember his name.
Good morning, Mr. Manning. We have indeed met previously.
How are you this morning, sir?
Good, thank you. So when you started with your presentation, you mentioned that you present views on behalf of many other people. And as part of your presentation, you raised a number of concerns from a lack of transparency in pricing. You also raised the concern about conflict of interest in private property and Ribosa. You've also raised concerns about access to software syndications such as Fusion. Would you say these concerns are also shared by the other people that you referred to, and are these other people that you're talking about estate agents?
Okay, these are people that over the years I've assisted and helped educating them as interns. I don't have a list of people that I don't represent a list of people. I represent the industry based on my experience over more than 40 years in the business. That's it. And I realize, well, what the challenges are of somebody being even a qualified estate agent today in the business, or somebody entering the industry.
And I just want to ask specifically about other smaller estate agents. Have you interacted with them regarding some of these concerns? Do you know if they share these concerns as well?
Well, the smaller agencies or the larger agencies?
Smaller agencies in particular.
Yeah, I did contact a few. I sent them your questionnaire. I don't know whether they responded or not. I distributed quite a few of the questionnaires.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Manning, thank you very much for coming forward to the public hearing and making a presentation. I think certainly it's helped us to get a better understanding of the property classifieds and also the estate agent's relationship with them. And I'm sure it has also helped the public understand what is behind their search for a property online nowadays, and the kind of commissions and other prices paid by the estate agents to list. So thank you very much. I'm glad we were able to help overcome the technical issues, and I wish you all the best for your business. We are now moving on to...
Thanks very much for the opportunity to participate.
Pleasure, Mr. Manning, and please have a good day, and I hope that your agency continues to at least provide an income for you in these difficult times.
Thank you. All the best to everyone.
We are now moving to my property, and we have Mr. I think it's Adrian Grove, who's joining us. And my property does form part of the Integral Group, Mr. Grove, welcome. Mr. Grove, I believe you have a presentation, so I'm going to let you proceed with that presentation, and then we'll have questions following that.
Great, thanks, James. You guys can hear me fine, huh?
We can hear you absolutely fine. So
excellent.
Please load it up, and then we'll listen to you.
Cool.
And
yeah, thanks.
that to the public.
Just like to thank the Commission for the opportunity to present, my views, which is also the views of obviously many of our clients. I've been in the industry for more than 15 years, grew up in a real estate family, and speaking to estate agents on almost daily basis. So I do understand the industry, I think, quite well. There's lots of unhappiness in the industry at the moment regarding, property portal monopolies, prices, and so forth. So I'm actually quite surprised that none of the real estate organizations have stepped up and presented, their views of the current situation. But at least I'm presenting our view, and hopefully creating a bit of, or bringing a bit of transparency to the process. So I'm going to share my screen here.
We can see it perfectly now.
Excellent. Let's kick off. I'm just going to do 2 or 3 slides just introducing everyone to what we do. So we're one of the largest independent service providers to the South African and Namibian real estate industry. And we don't have any external shareholders, and that's by choice. Since our launch in 2004, we've been bootstrapping and basically grown organically, embracing the remote work movement. And we have a small agile team of 16 passionate people who are really creating cutting-edge solutions, or trying to create cutting-edge solutions for the industry. We love working with the small estate agencies and any forward-thinking real estate entrepreneurs that in the industry. So our main products evolve around 3 systems that you see on the screen. First of all, we have a listing system where estate agents basically capture their listings. We have a syndication platform where those listings are syndicated to. And we have our website component where we build real estate websites for estate agencies. So it's a complete real estate solution, but you can also sort of use those components individually. So we have clients like Lead Home, Keller Williams, a couple of others that are using only parts of the system to do their syndication or their websites or whatever. So we give clients freedom of choice. We also run a portal, My Property, in South Africa and also in Namibia. Much better success in Namibia with our portal than South Africa. One of the oldest portals, and we've also recently launched a guided virtual tour platform and a home loan origination service. So of particular interest to the Commission, I think, is the listing syndication. As you can see there on the screen, I think I've captured most of it. We actually provide the widest marketing exposure for clients, if they want to market on various portals. So the estate agent would capture a listing once with us, and we would distribute it to all those portals, but we give them choice. So if they want to only advertise on Property 24 and Gumtree, or only on Private Property and some of the other portals, we give them that choice. And we're very open to working with new portals. You spoke with the guys from Property Central, for instance, yesterday. We were the only sort of syndication provider that was willing to work with them. And that's, the same case for many other portals. So if you want to start a property portal, we are probably your best choice to get into the market. So as I mentioned, we provide freedom of choice. So we don't lock estate agents into, advertising with certain portals. They can choose, where they want to advertise. So that is what we do. I want to jump in and give you my views of the current portal situation. Times have moved on, so we are seeing a sort of a blurred line between what is offered by traditional real estate agencies and the new portals. Portals are really getting closer to the transaction, and that results in higher fees, and we see it worldwide. If you look in the US at Zillow, UK at the portals, Rightmove, and the other portals there as well. So they are taking ownership of parts of the real estate transaction, and this trend will continue. So there's quite an interesting pick. You'll see Google Trend Search on, that's in the US. Zillow is the most prominent portal, and all the other real estate brands. And you will see around 2010, there was a big shift where, that portal started to push their advertising and obviously gain market share. And there's people searching for the brands. So the portal has become the first or the shop front for estate agencies or people wanting to, sell homes. Interestingly, South Africa, I did an analysis there. Very similar picture actually, and also at the same time, see at around 2010, private property had a lead at a time, and then sort of, less interest, and Property 24's interest or searches on Google just increased over time. It looks like the gap is still opening up. Now we gather a lot of the stats in terms of portal views, so we know what's going on in the market. And I can tell you now that Property 24 is sort of opening the gap to anyone else. So we all know that data is the new oil. If you want to start a portal and you don't have all the listings, you've already lost the game. It's very difficult for new portals to enter the space, or any established ones to compete. We operate in the portal space as well, and we see if there's more listings added to our website, the search engine optimization, the ranking, everything improves. So that's why I'm saying if you have all the listings, then you sort of halfway there. The big problem obviously is most of these property monopolies or duopolies are fueled by investor money and prepared to make a loss for many years in order to drive out competition. SEO, search engine optimization, used to work well till Google released AdWords, and that allowed people or companies with money to be put in the top spots and obviously attract a lot of traffic. So you need a big budget for search engine marketing and brand marketing online and offline these days to succeed. SEO still drives a big percentage of the traffic, but you need listings for that. It's a chicken and egg scenario there. The big problem is that portals and particularly listing providers are very selective about who they share data with. And as I think Mr. Manning explained in the previous session, it's all about control to remain market share. The real estate industry, the traditional agents and the portals, everyone wants to obviously control or retain their market share. A big pain point, and you'll see it in all the online forums, where estate agents engage, and usually around March, April, when price increases are announced, is high portal fees. It's an incredibly big pain point for the industry, but in the rest of the world as well. That's high fees are a problem. The problem for us is that agents are left with a smaller marketing budget to support other marketing initiatives. So, for instance, on their own website, or supporting other paid portals as well. So we have instances where we see clients dropping certain paid portals, or they're not too expensive, just to keep head above waters and obviously stay on Property 24. My view is that the cost is passed down to consumers via the agent commission, so it leaves little room for negotiation, as the portal fees. And I had invoices forwarded to me yesterday from a couple of clients. You're talking 5,000 to 20,000 rand a month easily for your average estate agency, and that's just for private Property 24. Then private property fees comes in, and any other sort of portals they want to support. So in addition to all the other operating expenses that agents have, the cost of operating a real estate agency these days is actually quite big. And if you don't do sales, you are pretty much screwed. So customers are left with default options, finding homes on certain portals, and there's, as the Property Central guy explains, very little innovation in this space. Is basically copy and paste between portals at this stage. The big problem as well is that high portal cost creates a barrier for new startup agencies, and we're seeing this firsthand with agents contacting us wanting to start up. So that's a big barrier to entry to help stimulate and transform the industry. Okay, so let's look at another big pain point, and that is the for sale by owner. If you want to sell your home yourself, or if you want to launch a new real estate model that wants to offer very low fees. So both private property and Property 24 provide for sale by owner listings, which in effect is competing with estate agents, but very little is done to promote the value and the role of estate agents. And in most cases, that for sale by owner option is advertised prominently across pages as the primary option. So that leads sellers to believe that selling a property is fairly easy. Analysis I did a couple of years ago indicates that we actually counted the number of private sales on the portals. It's a multi-million rand industry if you look at the fees that is charged. So it's a highly profitable part of a portal operation, obviously, if you have the eyeballs. So any real estate models that try to offer for sale by owner models and try to advertise those listings on these portals, or offer a low fee structure, are unfortunately penalized. So a recent client that actually switched over to us is now shutting down his business, was told that he couldn't market private seller listings for too low, as that would compete with the portal's own for sale by owner model. So that's quite a rough one. And that, at the end of the day, that's income we lose as a company as well. That's a client we lose. Now, new virtual real estate models with the lockdown, COVID, everything has changed. A lot of new virtual models launching where agents operate without offices nationally. So they are also penalized as base advertising rates have to be paid per region. So you would pay more if you advertise one listing in each province compared to having 9 listings in one province. So that doesn't help stimulate that new virtual real estate model. Okay, so that's the portal side. Listing syndication. So that is where, you know, listings are distributed between service providers or portals. Unfortunately, at this stage, it's the one-way, very anti-competitive relationship. So Integral, our company, supports all the portals via the listing and syndication software, including Private Property and Property 24, who each have their own listing software. So Property 24 has Prop Control, Private Property has Fusion. Integral was actually key in helping Private Property transform from for sale by owner portal to agency portal by supplying a bulk listing feed to them many moons ago. So although Integral provides these portals with listings, they actually refuse to feed the other way to support us and our portals. That's why I'm saying it's a one-way relationship. We try to find ways around that, any technical or cost issues, and we said, well, we can scrape your data similar to what Google does, but even that was not allowed. The other pain point for us in particular is that Property 24 charges an additional 500 Rand a month inbound fee to agencies, so that is on top of their advertising fees if they receive a feed from external providers. So smaller estate agencies that come to us and say, well, I want to advertise on all these portals, and we tell them, there's that inbound fee. Say, well, they have to obviously save on costs, so they are going to list with Prop Control, Property 24's own system, because that's free. So they already saving that 500 Rand a month. So that's that has obviously cost us a lot of clients. The other pain point is virtual tours. Top portals only allow the integration of selective virtual tour systems. Property 24 only allows 2 international service providers, and basically reject anything else, including our own virtual tour system that we've developed over the years. We've actually developed quite an innovative system where agents can do live guided tours with buyers. One of only, I think, 2 systems in the world that does that. We've developed that over lockdown, and then we unfortunately found that none of the portals want to support that, although it's obviously in the best interest of the consumer and the agent. Okay. So now we're coming to a tough one, and I'm going to step on a lot of toes here, but fortunately, the previous sessions, I think you got a good overview of sort of what's happening in the industry. So this industry initiative was launched to counter Property 24, who tried to buy private property, which saw Rebosa, the industry organization, via a company they formed, EAPPC, State Agent Property Portal Company, buying a minority stake in private property, which has now been patented as the industry portal. Although the majority share is still owned by another listed company, Cognition, which is owned by Caxton. So private property is marketed as the exclusive partner for Rebosa. The problem, as Jeff mentioned in the previous session, is there's multiple hats, conflict of interest. So the board consists of franchise brands who also serve on the private property board. So it's not reflective of the real estate industry. It's agents where, you know, about 2/3 of the real estate agents are still independent brands. So the truth is that the minority of the industry, consisting of those 28 companies or brands, owns a minority shareholder in a portal of 13%, while backing it as the only viable solution to counter Property 24. And there's various press statements you will see on that. So the whole portal landscape has stagnated. And as I've mentioned, based on our stats, the gap is opening. So there's a screenshot. You know, if you go onto the site, I think they've actually removed it 2 or 3 months ago when the Competition Commission started. Obviously saw the problem with that. So the alignment of industry organizations to certain portals is detrimental to stimulating innovation, you know, in the industry. Property 24 is NASPA's owned listed company, and private property, there's the shareholding you see there. Interesting to note that there's also a 15% share each to bond originators, Uber and Better Bond. As Jeff mentioned as well, there's preferential fees paid to private property if you part of that conglomerate, which I think is, you know, obviously unfair to any independent or startup agency that's not part of that. The other problem is that those originators, Uber and Better Bond, who are shareholders in private property, also have shareholding agreements with large national brands. So the branding is prominently associated with each relevant listing, and thus driving, you know, those bond origination leads, you know, for that conglomerate. Interesting to note is that there's only 3 main bond originators in SA. So it's Uber, Better Bond, and Multinet. Uber and Better Bond 80 to 90% market share, and then there are many aggregators under them, under their own names, and they take, you know, less commission. And a lot of the independent brands support these aggregators without knowing who they really support. So the smaller independent agents are unknowingly funding their competitors by means of the portal and bond originator support. Any attempts from, you know, anyone to engage with Rebosa? I've asked them, that this was many years ago, I've asked them about the anti-competitive stance. So I asked them, you know, don't you think it's anti-competitive if we feed to private property, but, you know, they don't want to feed back to us? And don't you think we need more transparency? And a couple of other questions there, you know, who's the shareholders in the company? What rewards, profits are paid out? How's everything handled? And, you know, I'm just told that I'm not a Rebosa member, I'm not a estate agent, and basically my questions are opportunistic, and we're not accommodating you. So that is my side. There's obviously a lot of remedies one can look at, but I'm looking forward to all your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Groevier. And we do certainly have some questions. I just want to start with your observations from the international situation. You had a slide on the US, and then you also showed parallels to South Africa. Yeah. And you had mentioned, I think, that there was an advertising push of, I think in that case it's Zillow and it's Rightmove in terms of... Yes. Sorry, Mr. Groevier, I've just noticed you don't have your camera on. If you could put that back on.
Sorry. There you go.
Well, thank you.
Yes, so there's a big marketing push, and that's primarily from Wall Street. They're throwing lots of money at real estate. Real estate is seen as a low-hanging fruit, and as you see with Zillow, many of the other portals, they make a loss for many years before turning a profit. Yeah.
So as I understand, I mean, and I had this discussion last week with some of the players, but as I understand, I mean, almost the model is throw a lot of money at marketing on Google, I suppose, and probably above the line brand marketing in order to draw the consumer, and that's what gives you almost the lead in the race. Is that your understanding, and is that what has happened in South Africa?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's two sides. One is obviously the budget for marketing. If you have deep pockets, it just makes it so much easier. The other is listings. So what we found on our portals and working with startup portals, if you don't have all the listings in a particular area, that buyer is going to jump off and continue his search until he finds the property he wants on a different portal. So if you have all the listings, then you're pretty much in a good position, and you can solve the primary need of the buyer.
I just wanted to ask, while we are on that topic, I mean, you've listed on your slide a few of the portals and I suppose a couple of agencies, but what about a Gumtree? Are they considered in part of this universe?
So Gumtree is one of our partner portals as well, and they based on the view stats we get back from them. So they send us stats back in terms of the number of views they get on a particular listing.
So, Mr. Khuvia, I must just interrupt you and say we are in the public. It's being broadcast. So if there is confidential information, then please don't reveal that, even if it's of a third party. But I'll let you proceed.
Okay, yeah. Let me rephrase. Gumtree does very well, and a lot of the other portals are actually are prominent in certain areas. So it's worthwhile for estate agents to actually test them out and see what works from them. We've certainly found that some portals are stronger in certain areas than others. The same for Gumtree. Certain type of listings as well. If you look at residential and commercial or rentals and for sale, each portal has its strength, but Property24 is sort of the king of the portals at the moment.
Right, so they attract traffic, much like I suppose My Property does as well. But you're saying the king is Property24.
For sure.
Then just to pick up on your listings issue and the syndication, I mean, I was interested that you syndicate to 21 different, as I counted,
it varies,
portals,
but
and you're saying Property Central will be one as well.
Yeah, they're busy finalizing their testing, so we've basically helped them sort of get on board, and hopefully they'll make a success.
Can I just ask, because none of us are technically minded, it's lawyers and economists here, so can I just ask what is involved in enabling a syndicator to send through to a platform? I mean, what is the technology requirements and any costs?
Yeah, so each platform has to build that syndication interface or API, application programming interface. and each portal has its own standard. So it's like protocols. So what we, and that involves, the fields they require, photos, the photo sizes, there's a lot of metrics around that. So what we're doing is we take one listing and then we make sure it will go onto each of those portals. Now, to run the syndication or to build that is quite complex, depending on the portal, because each has their own standards. So it's not an easy thing to do. And when you combine all these portals, then it gets quite support intensive. This is probably our biggest area of support within our company, is making sure the listings go through to all the portals. What also happens is that some portals may experience problems, and then those interfaces may break down and you can't communicate with them. So now we have to do failovers, and agents contact us, what's going on. So it's a resource intensive area of the business, but there are ways to make it simpler. And what we've, for instance, found, it is easier to integrate with certain portals than others. So, for instance, Gumtree and IOL Properties is very easy to integrate. The others are more complex.
But to put it in perspective, I mean, you're not a large business. You've got 16 employees, I think you said, and you've managed to put up 21 or 20 plus integrations. Yeah. So I just wanted to come back to then the question of why your My Property site has been denied access to listings, as you say, from Property 24 and their syndication software, Prop Control, and Fusion from Private Property. I mean, can it be a technical reason, or what have you been told?
No, these are listed companies, so to provision resources to feed out where there are already feeds out, I don't see a technical issue. It's more about control, not wanting to support competitor portals, as they know that that data, that listing data is the oil. From Fusion side, interesting, that was once owned, if you look at the directorship, owned by a couple of real estate franchises, then Private Property bought it over. They actually feed to one of our competitors for building, agency websites, and we've been trying with them for the last 7 years, maybe longer, to get a similar feed, and they just have one excuse on the other. So that has driven a lot of business, away from us to those, because of that. But that's definitely it's not technical issues, it's more a management decision there. Who do you want to support?
And so what are the types of excuses that you say you've got over 7 years?
We're too busy. Property 24, just a short answer, we not interested at this stage. Although the request is not from us, it's from the estate agencies. So the estate agencies ask us, we on Prop Control, we want to advertise on My Property, or we're on Fusion, we'd like you to build a website for us. And then we have to tell them, there's no feed available. So, what what can we do? And we've unfortunately had lost a few clients due to that. So it's tough, but we've managed to work around that and innovate on other parts of our business. So we're okay, but it's definitely we're looking at what agencies require, and it's definitely a problem for agents. They have to look who supports who in this industry before choosing a service provider.
So when you say you've lost clients, that's clients of Sync.
So basically, actually can't. Maybe I think I need to mention it offline. It's maybe a very sensitive topic, but yeah, we've lost some real estate franchise clients. I'm not going to mention the names. So because of Fusion or private property not wanting to feed to us.
And just to understand from the estate agent side, are there estate agents that want to list on my property?
Unfortunately, our traffic is not too hot in South Africa. But we understand the problem because we don't have the listings, so we don't have nearly the exposure of Property 24 private property. We are working on some initiatives and we're getting interest. So there is interest, limited at this stage. We're hoping to grow it. Our Namibian portal is flying, but the South African one, less interest. We did spend on online marketing, and then just got too much. If to promote the portal, it eats into your profits. So we said there are better things to focus on, and to focus on the areas where we can provide more unique services and provide better service for agents. So our approach is a bit different, but I think we'll get there. We'll keep on fighting.
Well, I mean, I suppose as you put at the beginning, if you don't have listings, it's marketing and listings. It seemed that the two pieces of the puzzle you need.
Yeah, for sure. I think if we have all the listings, or 80-90% of the listings, I think we can easily push the portal to one of the top positions. So it's not going to catch Property 24 right now, but then we have what the consumer wants, and then we can start working on the interface and everything around that to make the experience better, and see if we can make that experience better for the end consumer. But it's difficult, look at the bounce rates and stuff. If people don't find properties in a specific area, they're on to the next website.
All right, but if the syndication issue could be resolved, then would estate agents be able to list for free on your property site, and would that change the dynamic?
Yeah, we currently have a fee of 99 Rand a month per office, just to cover something, but we are likely to drop it altogether, because we think we'll make that up through other channels, advertising on the site. But if you look at our site, it's ad free. We don't allow for sale by owner listings, for instance, because we think real estate these days has become too complex. You need the estate agent. So we have a manifest on what we think is the right thing to do. We don't promote listings to certain positions. So we want to provide buyers and sellers with transparency. That's our goal. But yes, certainly if the syndication issue is resolved, it would open up not only doors for us, but many other startup portals in the space.
And in your slides, you said that Property24 charges an additional 500 Rand per month inbound fee to agencies who use Integral or other external providers. And this steers them to use the free prop control system to save on costs. So you obviously have set up a link to Property24 to feed listings from people who use your syndication software. And you're saying there's an inbound fee. And what do you understand the reason is for this fee?
I think if I look at from Property24 side, they would say it's, for doing the technical support to support that interface from us. The problem is that it's one interface that supports all those clients that we feed to them. So why charge every client a fee, and on top of those high fees, if someone is paying 5,000 Rand or 15,000 Rand a month, surely you can absorb that 500 Rand inbound fee. The reason obviously is that they want to retain that client on prop control on their system. There's a lot of other data that's very valuable for portals and listing providers. For instance, if a client lists a property and then marks it as sold, they immediately have access to sold statistics that they can then resell back to the agents. That is what currently has happened. You can buy property reports on Property24 and get some detailed sales statistics. So the more stats you have, the more detailed data you have, the more revenue for you. If we supply it, they'll have a limited set of data that they're getting. So it's much better for the portal if the agent can provide more details of each listing.
And would that also mean that you have all the listings if you're the syndication software? Because as I understood, clients may not list all their properties on a particular portal.
Yeah, we provide freedom of choice. I think most of the other providers do. So agents can choose. So for instance, we have estate agencies who don't advertise on Property24, more some of the rental agents, and then low value homes. It's very expensive, obviously. So yeah, not everything is going to Property24, but the majority is. But I think it's best to give that choice for agents, and then most of our clients give consumers the choice on where they want to advertise. So we, for instance, have a prominent Atlantic Seaboard client. That seller who owns 100 million Rand mansion doesn't want to advertise it on Property24 and generate all that interest, but they're happy to only advertise it on the agent's website for now. And generally with those type of clients, they have a very big referral network, so they're not as reliant on the portals. So that's good if they have that choice, obviously.
And can I just ask, do other portals charge an inbound fee?
No, only the advertising fee. So Gumtree is free, but they have a paid version. Not anything. Private property is fine. Yeah, none of the other portals charge an inbound fee.
Sorry, so it's only Property 24. The others, even private property, doesn't charge an inbound fee.
No. Let's check here. Yeah, no.
And do you charge an inbound fee on my property?
Well, not really. We have the 99 Rand a month advertising fee. It's more advertising fee to cover some costs, but
I mean, as I understand, the inbound fee is not to cover the advertising costs on Property 24. It's a separate fee.
Yeah, it's a separate fee to cover the support for the inbound feed, I suppose. Yeah.
And do you know if they apply that fee to other syndication softwares or estate agents?
Yeah. So they actually implemented that a few years ago. But if you listed on prop control or external service provider before that time, you weren't charged the fee. But as soon as you switch service providers, then you start. So if you move away from prop control, or you want to move from one of our competitors to us, or one of our clients to one of our competitors, then that 500 Rand a month inbound fee applies. And that's a good point, because that actually, made agents hesitant to move between service providers. Because they know there's suddenly an extra 500 Rand a month inbound fee if I want to switch to Integral or, do my own thing.
I mean, just on the fees that you indicated, 5,000 to 20,000. I mean, if I look at this sort of just cost per leads, I don't think you get to that sort of 20,000 mark. I mean, is this because people are buying other services?
Yeah, so typically the agents would sign up with the portal like Property 24 for the basic fees, and then there's additional services that both Private Property and Property 24 offer to add your logo to the branding or move your listing to the top position, couple of other things. So that's why it varies, and the price structure and the model for each portal is different, as was highlighted in the previous session. So Property 24 charges on sort of clicks and how many views you had, although they count that as a lead. As soon as someone clicks on your phone number on the website, that is a lead. And it's difficult for agents to obviously understand that, because they get a month-end report from Property 24 saying, you had 300 leads. I had a conversation the other day with the agent, and it's like, okay, I've actually got 10 real inquiries from the portal, but they said they gave me 300 leads. So it's the model creates a lot of confusion, but it's a very good model from a business perspective for Property 24, because what they can do is they can just push in more marketing in AdWords or wherever, and more people will land on the website and click on those phone numbers and stuff like that. So I guess if times are tough, you can just push a few Rand more into online marketing and generate more sort of leads for you. But the problem for estate agents are that there's no transparency there, except for the real leads they receive.
The other thing you raise in your slides is that around the dual role, and you'd said that there's a low fee structural focus on supporting the sort of FSBO market, and are penalized by portals who offer an SBO market. And you said a recent client who's shutting down was told that he couldn't market private seller listings for too low, as this would compete with the portal's own FSBO model. Can you just expand on that? I don't quite understand
sure. Sure.
where this client is listing and
yes. So let me explain so the portals offer the for sale by owner once-off fees of say R1,000 a month. Then you can advertise your home, say for 6 months. So some agents have for sale by owner services that they offer. So a sort of a scaled down version to offer lower commissions. Then they use us or other service providers to market those properties on these portals. Obviously, as you know, for sale by owner properties. But due to scale, you know, the agency can, potentially offer that private sale or reduced fee cheaper than what the portal can offer. So if they can do that, then, you know, the portal, it sort of starts competing with the portal. So if for sale by owner agency has 10 listings, you know, they are only charged the standard rates, which is a lot less than what the total complement of those for sale by owner listings would be if they listed directly with Property24. I hope I explained that correctly.
So as I understand, an agent uses the normal agency model with the portal,
yes. Just
which
lower
are priced
fees, yeah.
lower, and they collate for sale by owner listings,
yes.
put it on under the agency, and that undercuts.
Basically undercuts, that's a better word, yes.
All right, and so have they been kicked off those portals?
I'm not sure what the situation is, but they were told that they can't do that because it's getting too close to the price point of that portal. So you can have a detailed discussion with that particular client. I'm sure you would like to discuss it with the Competition Commission.
Yeah, we certainly would be interested to hear of that. Just to go to then your section on the shareholding. I mean, when you say that it's a minority and a poorer representation of the whole retail industry, Rebosa, I mean, who are they representing then? Is that larger agencies?
It's they have thousands of members, but most are franchise brands that hopped on board. So if you look at the different brands, it's not representative. There are about, standing on a correction, but 4,000 to 5,000 agencies operating in South Africa with 40,000 plus estate agents. So if you have 28 different brands represented, then it's obviously not representative.
And you indicate that members of the EAPC pay preferential pricing to advertise on private property. I mean, what evidence do you have of this occurring?
Well, I can discuss that offline, but yeah, I know that's, and it's obviously touted as, these guys made the initial investments, so they're getting back a bit. I've made the calculations that based on the fee that was paid for the private property shares, they would have, recovered the fees easily within the first year based on the preferential fees that was paid. So there's a lot of benefit, obviously, if you have shares in private property. We've been pushing Rebosa to ask them about, opening up shareholding to other estate agents. Never got an answer, and last year they said, they opening up and will provide shareholding to any estate agent, but there's certain conditions. You have to take a year membership or whatever, and I'm not sure how shares are issued. There's no transparency there, so I think best you ask them on this session how it works.
All right, but just so I'm clear, it's a preferential advertising rate. It's not, say, offsetting any dividends that come from being a shareholder.
Yeah, not to my knowledge. And I'd also like to know, what dividend payouts there are. I'm sure estate agencies who support private property and who don't have shares would like to know that as well. Now, are they supporting just generating profits for these guys, or is it, is it a fair situation?
Maybe just then lastly on the bond originators, as you say, they have a shareholding. I mean, do you have a bond origination company?
We've actually started aggregation unit just to test the market. That's still in its early stages. So we're hoping to make a success of that and to see if we can do quicker and faster financing for buyers. So we're working on something where you can do a pre-qualification for a home loan sort of almost instantly, doing a lot of work on that, trying a different approach. We're sort of delving into that as well.
So do you have any concerns about the bond originators being shareholders in private property?
I guess, it's fair business. They get leads, bond origination leads from private property. So I don't see any particular problem there. But I think there needs to be transparency, obviously, from the portals on who their shareholding is, so that agents know who they support. The bigger problem is, the sort of the multiple hats worn between the organizations, the portals, and everyone. So that's why we are promoting transparency within the industry. It's sort of two of the biggest bond originators in the industry supporting a portal that Rebosa proposes as the industry portal. That's a problem. If it was, the other portal, it's fine.
All right. I'm just going to see if there's any questions from the panel, and we've got a question from Mr. Radinku from the technical team.
Good morning, Alger.
Hey, how's it?
I'm good, thanks. And my question is on your online marketing, which you indicated that you did spend on online marketing, but you subsequently stopped. I mean, can you perhaps tell us, so which business were you marketing on that online marketing, and what was your experiences there? I mean, why did you stop?
So we have sort of two businesses. One is the portal side with my property. Other is integral side where we provide the syndication software. Interesting enough, on the syndication side and stuff, we don't do any marketing. We work on referrals. But on the portal side, many years ago, we did spend on Google AdWords in excess of 1 million rand over a certain period. And at that time, things changed. Property 24 got on board, started pushing ads. We were paying something like, I can remember, 20 cents or 10 cents per click, because it's an auction model. And, now it's like easily, 20 Rand plus per click. So it's a lot more expensive to be in a top position, and just didn't make sense to spend the same amount of money but less leads to your website. It doesn't make business sense.
And I mean, at that time when you were spending, I mean, did you experience, I mean, when you were attaining higher positions, I mean, how did that translate in terms of your platform performance, in terms of traffic?
Yeah, we actually did very well at the stage many years ago. But there's a direct correlation. If you spend there, you can see the leads coming in, and you can obviously track. There's tracking pixels and everything you can put in, so you can see where a lead comes from. So there's definitely a the more you spend, the more leads you can drive. We do run some ads on our Namibian portal, so we know that ad spend obviously works. Google is obviously not the only platform. There's Facebook marketing and the rest, but Google is still quite effective if you look at the cost per acquisition.
And maybe one last issue. So in terms of your monetization of my property, you indicated that there is a 99 Rand fee, which you are still thinking of perhaps withdrawing. So has this always been the case, or was it introduced at some point in time?
So we did various upgrades on the portal and trying different models, and with the latest, we thought, let's charge a small fee and see if agents are at least prepared to pay that fee. And if it works, then fine. And we can actually push those fees back into marketing. So we're playing around with the model all the time. But, I think if we can get the support from the real estate community, then, I think we would most likely drop that fee and recover the our operational costs and from other advertising within the portal. So it varies all the time. We're a small company, so we're trying different things all the time and see basically what sticks.
And perhaps in terms of you indicated that the listing of 80 to 90% maybe from the real estate agent will help you to grow. So perhaps one will presume that you have been trying and attempting to get the real estate agents on board. So for those that have refused, what would be the main reasons? I know you have mentioned the issue of fusion, but are there any, the issue of syndication and feeding, but are there other specific reasons why they are not listing?
So one is there are technical reasons, saying they don't have the resources, or not going to spend the cost to promote a portal that's not in one of the top 2 positions. So is that chicken and egg scenario? And we tell them, well, we need your support to get there, but it's not happening. So the main concern, I think, for most of the bigger companies that run their own listing software is, do you provide leads? And if you don't provide leads, well, then we aren't interested.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Javier, just one last question from me. You say you're flying in Namibia. Is that your My Property portal, or both, or the whole?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought it up. I wanted to mention that. So My Property Namibia does very well. We the top two portals in Namibia is My Property Namibia and Property 24. Interesting enough, there we are the majority service provider for listing syndication in Namibia, and we provide a lot of the listings to Property 24 in Namibia, as well as other portals that operate there. So we've effectively created our own competition by supporting these portals. We could have said, like they do in South Africa, and say, well, no, we're not going to support you, and just keep our market share and push prices up. But that's not who we are. We are serving the real estate community, and I think for us, and certainly not for me, it's not about the money. It's about the passion for the industry and creating great products. We techies, and just enjoy what we do. So that's why we follow the same approach in South Africa. We're opening it up to other platforms, creating our own competition, because we think that's best for the industry going ahead. If we support a portal that does better than us, it drives us to improve our own portal. So that's our sort of motto.
And I mean, what is different about Namibia if you're up against Property 24 in that market?
Namibia is I was actually born in Namibia, so that's why I'm sort of running the portal there as well. Namibia is a much smaller market than South Africa. It's a bit different. Agents are not as dependent on portals, I would say, as in South Africa. And Property 24 actually runs a free service there. So it's a free portal. I think if they start charging fees there, it would certainly change. So it's different dynamics. It's such a small market, and the profits you will generate from that is a lot smaller than South Africa.
Mr. Javier, I want to thank you for coming to the public hearing and providing inputs to the panel and the technical team. We certainly appreciate your time and also your insights as someone who's clearly been in this game for quite a while.
Thanks. It was real fun to do it, and I hope I gave you guys some insights, and sorry if I stepped on any toes.
That's fine. We are then going to take a 10-minute break, and then we're going to resume with private property, just because we started a bit earlier today. So we're just going to have a quick 10-minute break. Morning, everyone. Sorry it didn't start on the same time as we maybe indicated, but it just took a little longer as we had to accommodate Mr. Manning this morning. Mr. Mwela and Mr. Kwaza and Mr. van der Berg, are you all here?
Yes, we are, Mr. Chair.
Great. And I've got Mr. Mwela, you're the CEO. Mr. Kwaza is the CEO. Mr. van der Berg, I don't have your designation.
Business Development Executive, Mr. Chair.
Business Development. You're also welcome to call me James if you want. I don't object. All right, I think we're going to go live now. And again, apologies for the delay. I know your time is precious. And I'll just introduce you and then you can go straight to your presentation.
Thank you.
Welcome back from the break. And we are now proceeding with private property. We have Mr. Mwela, the CEO of private property. We have Mr. Kwaza, the COO. And we have Mr. van der Berg, the Business Development Officer, joining us. Welcome, gentlemen, to the public hearings.
Thank you very much, James.
Mr. Mwela, I believe you have a presentation, so I'm going to let you proceed with that, and then the panel will probably have some questions following that.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'll just switch off my camera for the duration of the presentation so that I don't have any issues with network.
That's absolutely fine.
Okay, perfect. So I just want to take you through some high-level points, obviously leading up to today. What we've done is we've submitted quite a comprehensive list of documents to the Commission. We've been engaging for the last couple of months, and I've basically taken out a couple of really important slides. From an agenda point of view, I'll give you an overview to start with, just an overview of private property, the business, where we come from and just what some of our history is. And then I'll go into just the evolution of the online property advertising space as we know it today, how it's evolved over the years. We'll do a review of the listing engine market, and then the expansion of global social media platforms and how they're affecting our ability to do business. And then the last bit, what we've done is we had prepared a few points for the Commission to consider. And these points are obviously based on what some of the players in other industries and other jurisdictions in other countries have done regarding competition in this particular space. So we're not going to present the fifth one for the purposes of today, because we were informed by the Commission that we are not necessarily in a position to go into that level of detail with the economists that we actually wanted to present with us. So what will happen is there'll be another opportunity apparently in February for us to come and present some of those findings. So if that's okay, we'll cut that piece out of the presentation, James.
That's absolutely fine. I mean, you're correct. We've invited any economic reports by the end of January, and then we'll hold some in-camera sessions following that, and also if there's any legal submissions. So you will have an opportunity, and you can make written submissions in the meantime anyway on that. So we will take it into account for sure. But I think today is about the business.
Okay, perfect. And right up front, I think I would like to say, all the facts that we're presenting today are facts as we see them. All the information that we have as information that we see as it as private property. There may or may not be variances here and there. So we are asked to present what our view of the world is, and we're going to do exactly that. So this is obviously an opportunity to just talk through the entire industry and where we see things being now and where we see things going. So if there's any mention of any other business, the mention is not based on anything else other than we're answering some of the queries that were given to us at the time. Okay, so I'll go straight into it. 1998 is when the business was started. As you can see there, the business was started as a tech startup in a garage. So typical tech startup, we were at the time one of the first tech startups in the country, and with a very rich history on just how technology has evolved over time. So what you see in the picture there was our first website on a big gory desktop, and we've begun to evolve since then. So proudly South African brand with funding that has been built up over the years, and obviously with a very local presence. We have had our head office in Durban from inception. We started out initially with as a private sales business and have evolved to a point where we're now 99% estate agent driven. And then the internet at the time that we started, there was an adoption rate of just under 5%. So there was a couple of things there. The business was trying to come up with a new way of doing things at the same time. We were trying to introduce the country at the time to specific things around the internet. Adoption was very low, and at the same time, the business model that we had was new and was quite different. So the first couple of years were very difficult in terms of scalability. And we obviously evolved as time went on. We've since evolved. 23 years later, what we have is a business that now provides a broad range of products and services. So we have listings that are quite varied. So listings on the property portal that are rentals and sales listings. And at the same time, we have tons and tons of information that just enables customers to be able to make the appropriate decisions. So as you can see, the evolution has been quite drastic. A lot of our traffic now comes from the mobile pieces. So there has been lots and lots of evolution. We have lots and lots of estate agents that at this point list on our property portal, and they pretty much have been the driver of our business over the years. So important to talk about the evolution of property advertising from what it was to what we know today. So what used to happen a couple of years ago was print was the main driver behind the ability for estate agents to sell. So the evolution from print to what you see today going online was driven largely by the industry itself. And I think it is important to note that the customer, the estate agent, has been very pivotal in the decision on where this industry in terms of property advertising goes. So once upon a time, it was the shop floor that had pictures on the window. It was the billboard outside. It was the Sunday show days. And it was various segments of newspapers and, of course, the bin. So at some point in time, even we were quite popular on the bin. The evolution over the years has been driven by a number of factors. But largely, among other factors was adoption of the internet, of course, but largely the preference of the estate agents in terms of where they wanted to list their properties and how they wanted the industry to evolve. So when we started in 1998, what we see here is a graph of about 5% in the year 2000 of adoption of the internet. And what you see over the last sort of 20 years is a significant increase in internet adoption. And with that, obviously, has come a specific opportunity or specific opportunities to scale various businesses. And what you're seeing, obviously, in these hearings is a number of those businesses that have taken advantage of the adoption of the internet and formed online businesses. We were there in the beginning, and we have seen the rise of the internet, which has enabled us to obviously get more access to broader markets. So starting at 5%, there was a bit of a flat line leading up to about the next sort of 8-9 years. And then for some reason around 2010, 2011, we started seeing a much, much higher adoption, 46% access in 2013. And by 2019, we had reached 68%. This enabled a business like ours to be able to have more customers coming on in terms of estate agents and more buyers, what we call seekers of private property looking for properties to rent or properties to buy, information and the like, because it almost became a way of doing business. Around about 2010, 2011, as this was happening, there was a significant event that happened within the industry. So at this point in time, what happened in the industry was a body was formed called RIASA, and RIASA had an arrangement. They appointed Property 24 as the technology media partner of choice. At that point in time, private property lost quite a number of listings and started falling behind. And we went through quite a number of years where we were not a profitable business, and it was quite a difficult time at that point in time to go through this phase. It's also important to note that this was happening just at the time when the internet also began to develop in terms of access in the country. So the timing of this appointment was quite pivotal at the time. Obviously, there was the likes of Corbitech that were acquired and SA Home Traders, etc. So all these aspects were really pivotal in driving the use of online as a normal day-to-day thing. And obviously the emergence of portals and how important portals then became from then going onwards. So the combination of the growth of the internet and of course the combination of the deal that happened at the time introduced a different pricing model, among other things, but introduced a completely different dynamic that private property didn't really have as something to deal with until at that point in time. So it introduced a completely different dynamic, and that dynamic that was introduced was essentially around things like pricing. So we at that point in time were left with very little choice, but to also adapt our pricing. So the new pricing structure that came from Property 24, among others, was a pricing structure that allowed agents to list in an unlimited format. And we obviously had to follow and adapt our model accordingly. So a property portal is largely driven by two things. One, the ability to acquire buyers or seekers, people that are looking for properties. And secondly, the ability to acquire listings. So those two pretty much drive a property portal. So in the absence of listings, or while we had a shortage of listings, we actually saw quite a few years when private property struggled to get scale, so to speak. And we obviously then had to go through a couple of years of adapting and changing and just trying to survive over time. We went through quite a few difficult years as we were trying to re-engineer our business model to adapt to that. Since then, we have had quite a lot of evolution and change within our business. There's a couple of things that we have introduced and continue to introduce in terms of our pricing approach. So we didn't just remain static in response. In response to 2011, we continued over time to evolve the business. So what we are dealing with now, or what we have now, is a broad sort of pricing set. Obviously, we have different types of estate agencies listing with us. We have the sole trader, and we have the big brands listing with us at the same time. So over the years, what we've done is we've adapted our pricing model to be able to cater for as many estate agencies as we possibly can during this time. So packages start from 650, which is the smallest package, 650 Rand a month. And then it obviously goes to way above 100,000, which is, in this case, the bigger brands. So we have packages for every single estate agency, and we continue to evolve those as they come. So we keep introducing new packages to adapt and make sure that we give as much access to as many people as we possibly can. As the market continues to adapt. So in terms of market players, this is the market as we see it. And again, this is internal private property information that we have. So internally as we see it, we see private property with a market share of about 28% and Property 24 with a market share of about 60%, and the others pretty much make up the balance. Important to note there is the rapid growth of Facebook Marketplace that is now becoming a proper player as we continue to go along. I think everybody in this industry is beginning to see Facebook and other social media platforms as a possibility to position themselves, etc. So what we see here in terms of market players and what we have within the private property space, this is an estimation that we have put out. We have submitted exactly the same to the Commission as well. So I'd then like to just take a bit of a segue. I think it's important to start looking at this also from a global perspective. So if you look at this globally, these are stats from between 2015 and 2017. What I'd like us to note here is the size of global real estate. So at 217 trillion, these are estimates at the time, global real estate is a huge market in comparison to the others. Now, what we've seen here, and specifically I'd like to compare it to financial services. So financial services at 15 trillion, significantly smaller than what you have in terms of global real estate. So obviously coming into the local market, it's a significantly smaller number. But global real estate in terms of asset value is the biggest in the world by far. That compared to the amount of investment that's being put into proptech versus, as an example, fintech. Fintech is significantly smaller, as you see in the previous slide. But if you look at the amount of investment and the number of deals that are going through on the proptech side versus the fintech side is significantly smaller. So there are factors that cause this. And I think these are some of the factors that are worth exploring when we do the next submissions around the economics. But what you see here is in 2017, for instance, you have 1.8 billion rand, $1 billion worth of investment. That $1.8 billion is compared to $50 billion of investment in fintech. So the big difference is here. This is basically 3% in comparison to what went into fintech. So there's a global shortage of the amount of money that's being poured into proptech versus fintech. I think those are, factors that definitely are also at play. We have seen an increase over the last couple of years in terms of more and more people coming into the proptech space, but we're still very much behind in terms of the comparison with an industry like financial services, which has fintechs. So this is definitely a discussion I think that needs to be held at some point in time, how we can enable the investment into proptechs over time. The really important thing here to note is without investment in an industry like ours, effectively, we're unable to compete with global players. Without investment in an industry like ours, you're unlikely to see this industry being able to attract the kind of innovation that the industry so much requires. And then I wanted to touch a little bit on some barriers to entry from how we see it. So from barriers to entry perspective, the first one is the property process locally is quite unautomated, quite manual. An example there is you can't complete an offer to purchase locally electronically. It has to be printed out and a physical copy has to be signed. So the process is long, it's very unautomated and is not very attractive to, innovation and tech, because there are just so many factors here that you can't necessarily control. I was reading a couple of articles and there are countries like the US, for instance, where a transfer can take place in a couple of days, and locally a transfer can take anything between 2, 4, 5 months, depending on a number of factors. So if you look at just that alone, we still have quite a long way to go in terms of being able to automate this process, and this in itself is a bit of a barrier in itself. And then secondly, if you look at the amount of money that and marketing funds that need to be invested in big tech as we know it today, there's a lot of that's quite a high barrier. There's a lot of money that needs to go into marketing to be seen, to be relevant, to rank, etc. And it's quite a high barrier for smaller proptech companies, or just basically online companies, to be able to come in and compete and be relevant and be seen. So as much as they can be the view of being able to get listings, I think that's one side. once you get the listings, you still need to be able to do the necessary ranking, do the necessary advertising, and that's where a lot of money needs to go into that. It's a very difficult thing to do without the necessary investment coming into the business, and obviously without the necessary, call it protection from big tech. So I'll now hand over to Carl, who's going to take us through the listing engines market.
Yeah, thank you, Amasi, and thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the Competition Commission. So I think let me start off with sort of real basics around what a listing engine is. It really is a piece of technology that uses APIs to allow an estate agent to take their listings and put it into multiple sources, and then obviously get feedback back in terms of the performance of their listing and leads and the rest of those sort of things. So it's it's very much driven around technology and APIs. We've got our own one called Fusion, which we purchased from industry in 2019. Fairly old technology that takes quite a bit to keep it upright. But essentially, again, the bare basics of what this is the ability for an agent to manage their listings, put it into different portals, get feedback back. You've got other add-ons to it as well, CRMs, deals managements, and the rest of those sort of things. Just regarding our technology, though it does take a fair amount to keep it upright, it's definitely not a simplistic piece of technology, and that's really due to the different rules that each of the portals have around how it is that listings are done. So, every API takes effort, takes work, and it takes a fair amount of cost to keep one running and two evolving. So essentially, every time a portal makes a change to their listing rules, we've got to do a severe amount of regression testing just to make sure that a change on one end doesn't make something fall over onto the next. So it's a fairly old piece of technology that's quite clunky, and it takes a lot for it to keep it upright. Just in terms of the market shares of the different listing engines, and as Amasi said earlier on, this is in our world, and it's the way that we see it. Fusion, which is ours, we have around about 20% market share of the listing of all listing engines, followed by prop control that we see at around 15%, and by far the biggest player is prop data. And the other one there, so other is your likes of Remax and Pam Goldings and all these big brands that chose, instead of using a Fusion or a prop control, they created their own bespoke listing and feeding engines that they then choose who it is that they feed into. Again, the by far the biggest player, and they've done this pretty quickly, is prop data. They've clearly got a really good piece of tech, clearly got a good value proposition, and they've eaten up quite a bit of market share over a fairly short amount of time. Just going on to sort of the expansion in terms of global social media and other platforms, I think it's important to note that as a business, we don't just look at what our competition is now in the South African context, but we've also got to have a look at what's happening globally and what's the future competitor going to look like. So really what we have at the moment is Facebook. You can see here 2017, the amount of users in South Africa has doubled from 2017 to 2021 at 28 million people. Globally, they've just shy of 3 billion people that use it. So it's a significant amount of eyeballs that are going on there, and with that, we've had to adapt and change as well. So, if I can break it down to you, you've got to follow where the consumer is. So, several years ago, the consumer engaged with property through newspaper. Then it moved on to online and very much around portals. The consumer is now highly active in Facebook, and that's where the consumer is. So as a business, we now need to evolve and start doing our marketing spend over to there. And that's not a shift of marketing spend, that's additional marketing spend to go through and make sure we're attracting the right eyeballs. As an example, we have a consumer on our portal spends around average of 9 minutes on our portal searching for property, whereas the average Facebook user is probably on Facebook for just under 3 hours. So it's a significant amount of time there. Very much what Facebook Marketplace is doing is they're essentially creating their own portal around property. You could see, I think Marcy mentioned earlier on that Facebook Marketplace has got around 3% market share when it comes to traffic, and that's gone from 0 to 3% very, very, very quickly. So there's a future competitor. We're incredibly concerned around the likes of Facebook and Google, for that matter. It's just their size, their ability, their spend is just something that's very, if any, very few can actually compete with. So very much a concern for us going forward. And, again, back into the South African context, on the next slide, you can see here, 83% of internet users in South Africa are using Facebook. And it's a significant amount of people, and it's a significant amount of time. So what we're seeing here is the industry is starting to take notice of this. Consumers are taking notice of this and are moving away from what we would call traditional markets, and very much into the Facebook marketplace area. I think that was really it. But they've got some very, very good algorithms that can track where the consumers are, where their interests are, and then really push the content there, which is incredibly difficult for small businesses, and especially in South Africa, to be able to compete with a global brand such as Facebook and their algorithms. I think, yes, Marcy, we're going to stop here. This next portion was for you, huh?
Just in terms of concluding this section, and I'm sure there'll be quite a few questions that we still need to answer. It's important to just note a couple of things, right? I think as private property, we are not a dominant player from all the stats that we see. We are a business that has, over the years, struggled to remain relevant. We're a business that continues to innovate and stay abreast of our customers and support our customers as much as we can. We're a business that's trying to value our estate agent customers and obviously give them as much support as they need. Hence, from what you can see in some of the new packages that we've come up with, last year we had an instance where going into lockdown, the whole industry was unable to operate. We came to the party and gave a 25% discount to every single estate agency in the value chain. We did that for 6 months, and we also decided to hold off our price increase. So we didn't have a price increase for just under 2 years. So as much as possible, we're trying to add value to the industry. As much as possible, we're trying to add value to the business. But it is important to just note we unequivocally are not the dominant player. It's not something I enjoy saying or like to say, but factually speaking, we're not the dominant player. We can almost be considered the bigger one of the smaller portals. So I think it's important to absolutely note that. We're a business that's trying to innovate and stay relevant, and we'll continue to do that in the interest of our customers as we build. If I have one additional opinion that I would like to give, it's simply the fact that when you look at where the industry is today, one of my personal concerns is what's the industry of the future. So I could almost argue that, the commission 5, 6, 7 years ago would have been very relevant in this case for the business that we have today. We're now sitting in an environment where we believe the listings market, as we know it, is maturing. And I think it will be important to also start looking at what do the next 4, 5, 6 years in this industry look like, and how do we ensure that we protect local players like us. We're not the biggest company in the world. We only have 88 employees. That number was 108 pre-COVID. And we've obviously had to make adjustments to that, which hasn't been the most enjoyable to do. However, it really is important, I think, for the Commission to note we're a business that is trying to build and do the best we can under very difficult circumstances. And I think the idea here is not almost to cry wolf and say protect us from the local players. I think we're well able to hold our own and continue to compete. So that's not what we are here to do at all. I think it's important to just see how we can have a look at the business and the industry of the next 4 or 5 years, and how we can enable players locally to play as fairly as possible. So I'll end it there, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mwela, and you can call me James or Mr. Hodge, and I'm sure my fellow panel member, Ms. Doris Tsepe, doesn't mind either. Thank you for that introduction. And maybe I just want to go back you had a slide on the role of estate agents in the development of online portals and Riasa. And I was also recently reading something from Rebosso, who's one of, well, some of the members of Rebosso are shareholders in private property. But as I understand, and I think was even covered beforehand, there were, when it was the days of print, there were sort of interventions by the estate agents to try and ensure that I think it remained competitive. And I think as things have moved to online, it seems from this Riasa initiative there was an effort to support one platform over another. I mean, is that what I understand happened? And maybe if you can just let me know what this partnership with Riasa and Property 24 meant practically. Did they list with you? Did they not list with you? I mean, maybe if you can just take us back to that period.
Okay, so from my understanding, what happened at the time was private property lost quite a few listings, quite a lot of listings, and the listings went off to Property 24. And we went through quite a few years where it was a bit difficult to compete. For me, I think there's two aspects here. One is, strategically, was that, a good move in the purchases and the like? Strategically, I absolutely have respect for the strategic decision that was made there. I can't fault it at all. What effect did it have on private property then? Private property had significantly less listings. And I could also argue, strategically, how did we respond and what did we do at the time? I think we did the best that we possibly could then. But yes, we did go through a time period where we didn't have the listings that we needed to have to grow the portal. So it did affect us negatively, yes. It also did affect us negatively in terms of revenue as well.
So as I understand from your slide, this group of estate agents who made up over 40% of the market decided they were going to partner with Property 24. Some of them may have listed with you still, but
yes,
some moved their listing exclusively to Property 24 in the partnership, and you lost listings as a result. And obviously that loses revenue. I mean,
yes,
if you lose an agency. How did that affect your attractiveness to the consumer side of the market?
The attractiveness did drop. Because what consumers are looking for variety in terms of listings. So you want to go to a particular area and possibly see every single listing that is there. And during that time, obviously, without the backing of, without all the listings coming from certain brands, it was difficult for consumers to find that. So, it's a given. If you don't have the listings, your numbers will drop. And yes, we did get affected by that.
And presumably that has then an effect on what you can maybe charge the companies that do list, because your traffic may have declined. Or
yeah, it has an effect on the entire business model, your pricing, what you do and what you don't do. It has an effect basically on your entire business model and your ability to make strategic decisions.
Sorry, and I'm sure your legal team have reminded you that it's public and that you mustn't traverse confidential information. But, I mean, can you just expand on that a little? You say it affects your entire business model, what you can and cannot do.
Yeah. So the fundamentals of a portal are simply the more listings you have, the more people you're likely to attract. And the other part of it is you obviously need money for the likes of branding and marketing to attract the appropriate customers. You need money to pay the Googles and the Facebook of this world. So the kind of decisions you can make, your ability to scale, your ability to increase your user base, your ability to look at other revenue streams is restricted. A case in point is, what do advertisers look for? So non-property, non-estate agent advertisers like an insurance company, what are they looking for? They're looking for eyeballs and being able to sell their products and put their products in front of various eyeballs. So without those eyeballs, it's difficult to scale and sell your business to other potential partners.
All right, I think I appreciate that. So the revenue starts to mean you may have to market less. Other revenue streams get affected because you've got less eyeballs. And so
100%.
you've got to be a little more agile in order to probably just survive. But you've made it through. And so was this a period, I mean, going into this 2011, how were you placed relative to Property 24?
In terms of market share and the like?
Exactly, yeah.
So in terms of market share, I don't have that information, James.
But
I
just
don't have
roughly,
that.
were you kind of on an even keel? Is this, because you say this is a pivotal moment?
So it is a pivotal moment for two reasons. It's a pivotal moment for one, in terms of adoption of the internet. That's not something we controlled or had any control over. The timing was absolutely perfect. Can't fault the timing. And at the same time, for us to lose the listings that we did at the time when the internet was booming, obviously did affect our attractability to the market. But in terms of market share, I'm not sure, James. I'd prefer not to speculate.
No, that's better that you don't speculate. Yeah, I'm sure we'll find that out. But I mean, so sorry, I've just got this Rebossa report in August last year where they're announcing the opening the shares. So they were giving a little bit of a history, and I suppose they say that at first digital advertising was very inexpensive and saved everyone a lot of money, but over time that has changed significantly, and the more dominant portal is dictating prices, much like the print media houses before. In many instances, prices now exceed what print ever cost, according to some. And there's no doubt this trend will continue. I'm assuming they're referring to Property 24 there.
I assume so, yes.
I mean, what they say, what happened to the Riasa relationship is they said 6 years ago, 6+ years, so that's about 2014. Oh, no, more. Property 24 created a joint venture company with the industry called Real Estate Agents of South Africa, and through this vehicle and dominant media interest established themselves as the market leader. Unfortunately for the industry, Property 24 cancelled that agreement. Now, you may not know the ins and outs of that, but they say 4+ years ago, a number of national estate agencies through the offices of Rebossa obtained a significant share in private property, giving the industry some say in the future of one of the leading portals, and that's held through the estate agency portal, property portal company. So as I understand, Property 24 called off this agreement, and is it pretty much the same group of estate agents that have come across to invest in private property then?
Not everybody, from my understanding, not everybody. But yes, we do have agreements with some of the bigger groups now. And yes, the EAPPC does own 12.78% of private property.
Yeah, I'm just wondering from the sort of Rebossa crowd, is it sort of Riasa rebooted, the same estate agents?
There are groups, there are brands that were part of Riasa that are part of the EAPPC, and there are brands that aren't. So it's not everybody, but largely yes.
All right. I'm sure they may be kicking themselves now for that that partnership, but we'll leave that to discuss with the estate agents. I mean, just to understand the Rebossa group, and as you say, there's quite a large overlap. I mean, we went to look at who Rebossa is and who they represent, and it strikes us that this is the big estate agents, essentially. And I think we heard earlier from Mr. Javier that's certainly his impression too. I mean, I know it's not your organization. I know it's through the EAPPC that they invest. But is that a fair reflection or not?
I prefer, again, not to speculate on Rebosa membership. We're not a member, and because we're not a member, actually, I don't know too much about what the membership sort of looks like. I'm not even sure how many agents they represent, etc. So I'd prefer not to talk on behalf of Rebosa.
No, certainly, and I think that's probably wise. I mean, we looked at the board, and it's kind of a who's who of the big agencies: Rawson, Pam Golding, Seif, Jarvis, Hazelmark, Leapfrog, Natal Property Consultants. Yeah, and also interesting that it's all white males. We heard yesterday about the lack of transformation in this industry, and that maybe cements that. I mean, Rebosa go on to say that obviously they have partnered with private property. They're now your partners. And as I go to all of those websites for those companies, I mean, you're either listed as a partner at the bottom, or your logo is on the bottom of their first page. So the way they talk about it is it's a partnership between this group of real estate agents, which may or may not be representative, and private property. I mean, is that your understanding as private property as well?
It's a partnership, but a lot of what we have is actually agreements with individual estate agent brands of various sizes and proportions. So what we have is agreements with the estate agent brands themselves, and not necessarily one single overarching agreement. So we when we're speaking to a Remax, we speak to a Remax. When we're speaking to Pam Golding, we speak to Pam Golding as a customer. So all engagements are at customer level. We don't ever talk about engagements at even shareholder level. There is no official, body that I meet with called the APPC. I haven't had a meeting like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would understand they're a shareholder, and a number of large agencies are part of that. And they may be opening that up soon to others. But I mean, there's no pushback from you around being a partner. I mean, it must benefit private property to know that big agents are behind you.
Definitely. I mean, it would be disingenuous to say it doesn't, right? We are one of the few fortunate ones that were able to sign agreements with big brands, and we appreciate the support of the big brands. It's not something that we scoff at or not appreciate. We absolutely do. I think it's been good for our business, and primarily because it's enabled us to get the amount of listings that we need and to be able to run a sustainable business. So yes, it has been good for us. And I think it's important to also note, James, that at some point, I think it was in April 2020, we sent out an email. We were asked to send out an email opening it up to everybody who wanted to participate. There are people who responded. We sent that email back to Rebosa. So the request was a Rebosa request. We sent that email back to Rebosa, and I'm not sure what happened then. So I obviously haven't kept in touch with who joined and who didn't join. That we don't see that as our role. So we run the business of private property. We don't really get involved. I'm the CEO. I run the business. I make my decisions independent of the rest. We have a board. We have a majority shareholder, controlling shareholder in terms of cognition, and the EAPPC owns 12.78%. So I think it's important to note that the influence on me, the influence on the business, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't exist. We run private property how we see fit. We run private property how we see as being in the interest of the business.
Yeah, and I suppose all I'm maybe putting to you is that, even for your majority shareholder, to have the support of industry is to your benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as I understand, the Robosa chair sits as a director, and they've got another director, and so it's two only in your total board. And at the moment, that's Tony Clark from Rawson and Adrian Goslet of Remax, if I'm right.
Yes.
I do want to just ask in terms of your fees. I mean, the first point is, I mean, I see you put them up in your presentation, so I assume these are not confidential.
Well, it's public knowledge. We send it out to our clients every single year. It's not a secret. It's not a secret what the fees are.
I mean, that would be our understanding, that there must be 4,000 agencies plus many of the employees that know exactly what this is, and it's discussed in all the industry, I suppose, blogs and platforms as well.
Yeah, if we had the choice to keep it confidential, I really don't like discussing pricing on specific customers. I think it can be a bit disrespectful to your customers, and we don't want to do that.
So I'm not going to ask you to discuss any specific pricing, and if you feel we're verging into anything like that, you can tell me. I mean, you did say in your presentation that you haven't taken an increase for 2 years. Am I right? Did I hear right?
Yes, we did our last increase when, Carl?
March of this year, but we waited, I think, 22 months between. So after we were supposed to do an increase, I think April of the year COVID came through, and we held back on that for about 22 months.
I mean, just out of interest in this is, I mean, you announced a price increase ahead of time. Last year, did you announce a price increase, and then when COVID, I mean, lockdown level 5 came kind of late in that month, then take it back, or had you not announced anything yet?
No, we hadn't announced it as yet. It's happened pretty much at the same time. So when we were supposed to give the 1 month notice, I think we were already into lockdown, so we just held back on it for 22 months.
All right, and I mean, can I give an indication, because price increases are a sensitive topic amongst agents, but I mean, can I get an indication sort of what has been your average increase over the last 5 years? So you held off for 22 months, but before that?
Largely, we're talking inflation-based increases, so it's probably around between 5 and about 7-8%. We haven't exceeded that for a really, really long time. So during my time, it's been inflation-based increases. So despite the fact that we went for 22 months, I think the average increase was something like 6%, if I remember correctly. And that, by the way, did come at great expense to private property. Not only did we give a 25% discount in order to try and retain market share and help agents to stay afloat at the time, we did it at great cost to private property. So to be able to go for 22 months without an increase, which is necessary, and at the same time to give a 25% discount to all our agents, obviously just says we're not brazenly in a position where we can just do whatever we want and people must stay. We were conscious of the fact that we could lose market share. And to avoid losing market share, these are the things that we needed to do to survive. Unfortunately, and for me, this is a really sad thing because our staff are important, but in the process, we also had to lose staff. So none of those things are things that can be done by a player that's considered dominant. We literally had to survive in order to do, we did what we needed to do in order to survive.
I mean, maybe, I meant to address this up front, but I mean, you mentioned dominance again.
Yeah.
I mean, I trust your legal advisors have told you that a market inquiry process is not an abuse of dominance process. It's quite distinct. So we're just looking at, are there any industry features that may be hindering competition or hindering greater participation
Yeah.
But just to go back as well, I mean, we heard from the previous participant that in a sense, potentially high prices of some portals, as he called it, impact the marketing budget of an estate agent. So they got to start to choose, and they may drop off other portals because, I mean, I'm not an estate agent, but I assume they have a marketing budget based on the kind of income they generate, and they've got to stick within that budget. I mean, has that been your experience, and was this one of the reasons for dropping your price 25% for quite a period while they were seeing reductions in revenue?
I think we're quite close to our state agent customers, and we have a decent understanding of what the pulse sort of on the ground is. And when you get, and I got a personal call, I got somebody contact me literally on LinkedIn, and she was in tears saying she was unable to pay. Is there anything we can do? And typically our contracts will say you need to give a 3 months notice. But in this case, I mean, we had to let the lady, we had to allow her to cancel immediately. And what she was due to pay us, we didn't ask to collect that money. The irony is, as soon as lockdown was gone, she came back to us. And I think for me, that's the kind of relationship we have with our state agent customers. We try and listen. We try as much as possible to help. And that initiative that we put in place was pretty much to try and do exactly that. So yes, it's not we're not blind to the needs of our customers. Absolutely not. We try and meet the needs of our customers as best we can. Every single company, every single human being can do better. And I know that we can do better, and we'll try and do better. But we do care about our customers generally.
Yeah, no, I suppose I mean, that sort of action maybe buys some loyalty, as you put it, that estate agent came back. And I was looking over, Mr. Manning, who came first today, and I see there's sort of relief discounts being put on invoices, which I assume is your 25%
yes
relief. But I suppose just to the first part of the question, I mean, if you're close to your estate agent customers, I mean, do they have a sort of marketing budget and are trying to balance it across various means, which may not just be portals, I suppose. They still may want to do a leaflet drop or put up billboards or something.
Yes, they do. They do have a marketing budget. They try and spread it as much as they can. And we have experienced that, yes. Obviously, the preference would be for them to spend it with us, but there are definitely other players in the market where estate agents typically want to try new things out. And yes, they do try and spread it to get the best bang for buck. So estate agents are typically looking for the best return that they can get from the money that they invest. And we try to be the best return that they can get for the money they invest.
And then with your slide on your fees, you had this Kickstarter package for 1,050. When was this introduced?
We introduced this about a year ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure. It's about 19 months ago we introduced that. So yeah, it was the first part of us making sure that we've got a product that matches a lot of the needs of real estate. And we've got several other products that are coming through now.
And so is this a permanent price, or does this ramp up at any point? I see it's sort of 20 listings, 5 users, 1 featured agent, and your brand logo.
That's correct. If somebody does go up, 21 listings, 22 listings, they are notified, and there's an additional charge for listing that kicks in, I think, from 1 December, but traditionally it's just been fixed at the 20. So essentially what we do when it comes to our products, it's really is around needs-based. So we've got an even smaller one now that Amasi spoke to that's been around for a number of years. I think it comes in at around 650. And that's for your micro guys. It's one agent, 10 listings or so. So we're trying to understand the client's needs and then match that product to their needs and then create products as well where there's gaps.
I was about to ask that, mention was made of the 650, but I didn't see it on the slide. So what is that product?
It's independent agents, ISC. So it really is one agent, 10 listings. It's designed for micro agencies, traditionally in the non-metro areas.
And just your understanding of the sort of field. We were, I think, told that 70% are sort of small or sole proprietors. What's the sort of distribution of agents in the market?
You've got about 40% of them are big brands, with the greater majority being smaller independents.
And just in terms of distribution of listings and sales, so that's 40%, is that agents or is that of listings?
It's the same ratio between the two. It's more or less the same. So if you've got a 40% ratio, you generally to agents, you generally have a 40% market share in terms of listings. Also, keeping in mind that the way real estate works is you will have one property listed by multiple people.
Yeah, true. And just in terms of geography, the bigger agents are obviously going to be well represented in metro areas where there's, lots of volume. But, in your sort of understanding from the agencies you deal with, are the sole proprietors more in non-metro? You mentioned the micro is sort of a non-metro, I think, package.
It's an equal distribution. So, if you're talking about, a small town with 300 people, then, I very much doubt that you'll have a very large brand there. But it's an equal distribution. So what you tend to see is you have real estate agents that start out with a big brand, become successful in their own right, and then open up their own franchise in a Sandton or a Sandhurst or whatever it might be. So I would say it's an equal distribution, and that's off the top of my head, we clearly don't sort of track stats like that.
You mentioned in the presentation, Mr. Mwela, that you adopted the unlimited listings model from Property 24. That's the way they went. That's what I understood you to say.
Yes.
And they have subsequently changed their model, as I understand. You haven't followed that. Is there any reason why you've stuck with this model?
It's a choice we've made, really. We made the choice not to follow.
And Mr. Manning made a point this morning that you kind of need the branded listing product on top of the subscription if you're going to show your logo. Can I just understand whether, what proportion of agencies that list with you buy into the branded product, branded listing product? Rough proportion.
I wouldn't even want to guess at this stage. If need be, we'll happily report back on that. But off the top of my head, I don't have a ratio of that.
All right. We'll follow up on that. And as I understand from the other products here, the featured listing is placing the listing at the top of the search. Is that right? So if I've searched for properties in Sandton, then the featured one appears at the top. That's different from the other types of sort of billboard banners, etc.
Okay, so Carl, you're probably best positioned to answer that, but I do want to go back to the pricing quickly. So the question was asked, now that I think of it, the question was asked why we didn't follow. So from the feedback we got from our clients, so it's feedback that we keep getting from our clients, the reason a lot of our clients, one of the reasons clients list with us still, is the fact that when it comes to private property, you can predict how much you're going to pay. So we see it as a differentiator. So subscription enables the estate agent to have some form of stability to enable them to budget for their businesses. So primarily, that's the primary reason why we didn't follow the new pricing model. Carl?
Yeah, so featured listings does get you towards the top of the page. It's not necessarily that you'll be on the first page of the first listing. There's also other mechanisms that we have in place around quality of listing, which will give you a higher ranking.
All right, yeah, because I mean, sorry, I understood it as from your website that is gets you to the top. Obviously, you've got to be relevant to the search, I would assume.
Yeah, it's area dependent. So if there's an area with high demand and a lot of featured listings, you could very well be on the second page, or towards the bottom of the first page. So it doesn't mean that you're going to be the first listing.
All right. So I understand you that there could be many of us with a featured listing, and therefore it's where I appear in the featured listings for the. I mean, I'm used to using now organic search. It's a Google term, I know, but all right. So I understand it's not like the Google model of bidding for a position. You pay to have a featured, and you identify a property you want featured, and then it's who else is featured as well. I mean, you may or may not be aware, we had a discussion last week with some players around transparency of advertising, and it was pointed out to us that the advertising guidelines, and I know, as I understand, it's only binding if you sign up, but that adverts are clearly identified, and we see a lot of the global portals have ad on their featured items as well. I know you don't have it, but I'm just going to suggest you think about that, because that has come up, I think, in many platforms, just the transparency to the consumer of whether a position is being paid for or not.
That's a fair point. We'll take that. The difference, in addition to that, with us is we have a specific section that says featured listings, and then the customer can then sort according to how they want. But when you search and get the results, the first place you go is featured listing. So we have a featured listing. We haven't indicated there that they're paid for, so we take that point.
I think, the one thing about doing this inquiry is you spend a lot of time on websites, portals, but as I recall, you do have featured listings with a little arrow. And I think certainly the practice differs, and we even saw yesterday from Expedia that they even explained to the customer that the ranking can be influenced by their compensation, because they have a model where I think you can pay a higher commission and then it boosts your ranking. But there's different levels, but I think it's certainly something that has come up and we're interested in. I mean, I suppose the only thing on fees that has come up is whether the unlimited listing favors larger estate agents or not. I mean, I hear you've now in the last little while introduced some starter packages, but certainly I think the view of Mr. Manning this morning was, I don't think he would fit into your Kickstarter. If he does, I would suggest you go and tell him, but that if the bigger agents may have a lot more listings, and therefore the effective price per listing may be lower. So I just want you to respond to that, and and you'd mentioned that there are other initiatives. I don't want you to raise strategic issues, but is this something you're looking to address?
Yes, and I think it is important to note Mr. Manning is a client of ours. We have every respect for our clients. Mr. Manning is definitely one. And obviously, we'll keep evolving our products and services to make sure we're able to cater for possibly everybody. So his concerns, we hear them. From his point of view, they're valid, and we absolutely respect that. So he's one of our clients. We are going to engage with Mr. Manning, and I think I'll leave it at that. But we'll continue to evolve our products and services to make sure we match the needs. It's impossible to please everybody, but we do genuinely want to make sure that our clients are happy with the service they're getting, that they're happy with the value that they're getting in exchange for the money that they're paying us. And Mr. Manning is one of our clients. Absolute respect for him. We'll talk to him and see where we find each other.
Because I think we've already heard quite a lot in the last day since he launched yesterday morning with Property Central, but that I suppose that not only is this quite alarmingly untransformed industry, but that often historically disadvantaged individuals who do want to get started fit into that small category because they're startups, and they are battling to necessarily pay the kind of fees. So I think it's again something to flag, that it is something we have to explore, is how are fees affecting even transformation of this industry, and what efforts are being made by those who are the advertising platforms, dominant or not, to kind of assist in that process. Because I think, sorry, go ahead, Mr. Mwela.
So absolutely, we have had various conversations. We were in conversations a few weeks ago with the NPPC to try and figure out, how can we help and how can we facilitate access to these type of platforms. So definitely on our radar, definitely something we understand is important to the industry and to the country. And by all means, we'll play our part to try and move that forward.
Yeah, and I think that'll be an area of focus for obviously the inquiry as well. And we'll look at, but obviously, once we've explored a little more, just to understand whether there are barriers to that participation as that falls within our mandate. I just want to then go to the listing engines. I think you called them, Mr. Van der Berg. We heard earlier syndication, but I assume it's the same thing. It's
very much so.
And I'm sure you listened in, or maybe you didn't, to Mr. Javier, but even our previous participant, Mr. Sorry. I go back. Mr. Jagaru, there we go. I mean, both of them have said that Fusion doesn't link with them. So can I just understand who Fusion does link with? First of all, because in your slide you listed my property in one of your sort of listing to multiple portals, but as I understand, obviously you don't link to my property.
No, we don't. So it's Property 24, Gumtree, Junkmail, and IOL.
All right. So out of the list you gave, it's just my property that is not there, but also not Property Central, as I understand. I mean, what is I suppose, the reason for not linking? I mean, we saw from Mr. Javier that he's able to link to 21, and he's a small business.
So I think I'm taking a wild guess here. I mean, as I said, fusion technology is quite old. You're looking at about 10 to 12 years old. So I'd imagine when they built it and to feed all of those in, there wasn't the requirement for all of these new startups. So I suppose that's the one reason around it is why it initially didn't come through. Marcy, do you want to? It's 12 years old now, huh?
Yeah, there or thereabout. So we bought Fusion across about 2 years ago. We took a while trying to understand some of that technology. So it's now wholly owned by us, 100% owned by us. And the idea obviously is for us to start investing in that technology and bring it up to speed. So during the course of obviously doing that, the idea is to try and focus as much attention as possible on rebuilding Fusion. But what's important to note is one, if you look at the market share of Fusion, in the bigger scheme of things, I think we're on, what is it, about 15%, 20% of the market share there. But listings are not ours. Listings belong to the estate agent. So the estate agent puts the listing via Fusion, and this estate agent decides where they want to feed the listing to. So I'd like to think that one of the reasons that we haven't had everybody on is just customer demand. So where we have had customers saying they want to link to this specific one, and here I'm talking critical mass of some sort, it then entails that we need to invest time, energy, and money in building that up. But obviously, we need to make multiple decisions depending on what we're dealing with at the time. The last year or so, we've been preoccupied with getting through COVID and surviving. And if I'm honest, that's not something we've really looked at or even discussed.
I mean, Mr. Crevier's sort of indicated he's been asking for a very long time and had no response, and it's not a priority.
I'm, what is it, just 2 years and something old, private property, card is the same. So I haven't had a conversation with him about this particular issue. He may have spoken to people at private property, I'm not sure, I don't know. But this is not something I've discussed or we've discussed with anybody. But the point to note, I think, is this. Listings are not ours. Listings belong to estate agents. And where we've had specific requests to say, please feed to this, and it's enough people that are demanding that we do that, we respond to the needs of our customers and we do that.
Is this not another area where I suppose it's an investment decision, as you put it? Would that lie with the board or yourselves in terms of?
No, this is definitely not a board decision. This is a decision that we as the expo make. Definitely not a board decision. It's not even something I have ever discussed at board level. It's our decision to make.
I mean, because I'll just put it to you that obviously this must hinder competition. The failure to link. I mean, it's no secret, and you said listings are the lifeblood. You yourselves suffered a period where you didn't get the listings, and you know what that felt like. So, I mean, this seems an obvious area where there may be features that are hindering competition. I see you nodding, but
Carl, you want to go first?
We mentioned Prop Data earlier on, and they've clearly got a very, very good product, and they've quietly gone about their business, and they've grown significantly. So I think there's clear gaps in this business or in this market to disrupt and come up with some innovative products and gain some market share and grow from there. So I wouldn't say that it's completely stifled in terms of competition. It's just if you got a really compelling product that you can go to market with, that consumers are going to appreciate and want to be part of.
I think maybe I wasn't clear. Portal competition. I mean, as I understand from Mr. Manning, is Fusion is free if you exclusively list on private property.
No, that's not correct. Fusion is free to a private property client. So if you list, so even if you have that 650 Rand package, you can use Fusion Lite for free, and that syndicates through to those other web portals that I mentioned.
Sorry, I'm just checking something. Right, because look, what we have here is an email that says when there was a request to feed to another platform you do feed to, that to open up this feed we will need to upgrade your free Fusion account to Fusion Plus, and this means a monthly payment of 360 Rand ex VAT.
I can't comment on that mail, but we've clearly got collateral that offers listing for free, which is Fusion Lite.
Listing on your own platform for free, but as I mean, this, at least for this customer, and it's from a relationship manager, clearly indicates that you've got to upgrade.
I don't think I would be comfortable to comment until I've seen it, but
I suppose the point is that obviously you are the estate agent's partner in this, and many do list on Fusion and use Fusion, and the inability to link with others must affect, these emerging platforms. And as I said before, I think, the shoe was on the other foot a while back, and you felt that, and you felt what it meant. It affects revenue, it affects your ability, it affects your strategic decisions. So I think this is certainly something that is going to receive a lot of attention from the panel and the inquiry. What is happening with syndication software, and why this is not being made available except to a very small group. Because as I understand, even from Mr. Khraviev, he's done 21. This is not a major investment.
Well, I can't really comment on what Mr. Khraviev said. I wasn't there. However, for me, I think the really important thing is just we keep talking about our customers. I think our customers, drive where we go. If the commission did decide in some shape or form to compel us to do that, we would have no choice but to do that.
Yeah, because I suppose what, as you weren't there, but, I think the allegations are that there is a conflict because of the partnership. It's also one area where even the partners that are not big estate agents do not necessarily have a similar, do have a similar incentive in a sense. Why support a competitor to get the listings? And Private Property and Property 24 are the two biggest portals. You may be the bigger of the smaller, but it's where it seems most of the listings lie, and most of the paid listings at least lie. So it's not about being, they say, being at the beck and call of large estate agents, but it may also suit all shareholders not to support a competitor coming up. Is that fair?
I would say fair is relative. I think I'm looking at, we'd have to sit down and actually look at it, James. Let me not respond now.
Yeah, that's fine. sorry, I just had a couple more questions, and then because we're almost out of time, I just want to check my notes quickly. So there's just two things for me. I mean, and maybe the first is more a comment. I mean, you've talked about enabling proptech and opening that up. I mean, access to listings is again an obvious one. I think even you would accept that different players may have different innovations, whether they're better or not. The market may decide. But if there is an interest in accelerating proptech in this country, then that may be one element. Obviously, there's a whole other angles to proptech about electronic buying, but it strikes me from our discussion that just getting access to listings enables innovation and new platforms to emerge, and also, as we heard yesterday, historically disadvantaged individuals to, as a platform owner, to participate as well. The other two questions, I mean, you'd indicated that also that there's these booster packages and the like, and as I understand, I mean, and I thought I heard you say it, but I may be completely wrong, but I mean, how your sort of ability to generate revenue from this probably depends on your scale and I suppose the amount of listings, I would imagine, whether you need to appear featured, the amount of customers who visit your site. So the more traffic and more listings, more able to kind of make attractive features that boost the linking, boost the rankings, or makes people featured on the platform. Is that right?
There is the standard package, and then there are various packages that enable you to appear different, be seen first, etc. So we've got a wide-ranging list of products and services to do that, yes.
But I suppose my question is the take-up by estate agents probably might depend on how many listings they're competing with and how important the leads are coming from your platform.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just one thing that we do miss, though, is it also depends on the property climate. So what's happening in terms of the economy? Is there lots of demand or not? What you typically find is a lot of demand for property, then there's essentially less need for real estate to advertise and boost and all the rest of those things. So those things are also, you got to take into account, that are very much out of the control of the portal.
So maybe just to add to that, coming out of lockdown, there was lots of pent-up demand that came through that. And what we naturally saw was a reduction in people buying product from us. So the market conditions definitely do determine that. There are times when properties are, selling very quickly, selling very fast, and times when interest rates drop, for instance, and demand goes up. Then obviously people are going to be there's significantly less stock. And there's more buyers. So it depends. I mean, whether it's a buyer's market, a seller's market, and what swing it's going into. But which is where we then continue to adapt, depending on what we see coming where, we continuously adapt the business.
Yeah, and to an economist myself, that makes sense. So yeah, I'm glad you added that. I think that's all from the panel and the technical team, and we've roughly stuck to time. I do apologize again, we started late, but we just had to fit in additional people. But yeah, I think thanks to Private Property for the presentation. You'll have further opportunities to engage, and I think we'll follow up on those few elements that we discussed as well.
May I just add one comment, James, if that's okay?
That's fine.
So I do think it's important to look beyond just what we have locally. So businesses like ours, local business, employs people here, pays taxes here. I think it's really important to have a look at how businesses like us can be enabled. Businesses like ours should be looking at getting bigger. We should be looking at going offshore. We should be looking at competing internationally. So I think the kind of things that we would be looking to hopefully get out of this is how do we get enabled to be able to do that and to be able to compete not just locally but internationally as well, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to build an economy here, and I think we would like to participate. And the best way to do that is to grow our businesses considerably. So please do consider on our behalfs, and I think there's lots of other online type of businesses that would appreciate that, how businesses of our nature can be protected. We don't have huge funding. Our funding is our revenue, literally, and what we work on is exactly that. So businesses like ours do need the support of various stakeholders in industry to continue to succeed. Lastly, really important to just thank our customers for all the support that they've given us, and from me to all our staff, they're doing an incredible job to carry us through all the things that we've been through. So thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mwela. And I think you've seen our terms of reference do also look at how South Africans can participate in this economy as platforms and potentially grow as well. So I know we focus probably a lot more in travel accommodation on opportunities and barriers to South African platforms moving into even just the immediate region, but beyond. So we'd be very interested to also get your take on some of that as well. And we hear you on protection. We'll take more inputs on that and see whether that's something that we need to make a finding on as well. So I think with that, just thanks again, and we'll draw this session to a close. We're going to resume at 2:00 with Property 24.
Thank you very much.